Alrighty, so week 4 in CIT82 Introduction of Web Technologies. And at this point, we are at the end of week 4, at the end of the halfway point of the semester. So I always like to let students know that, at this time next week, which depending on when you watch this, which should be within the first part of week 4, by the end of week 4 will be the last day that you can actually drop this class for and get a W. I was going to try to do a W, but I didn't do it on your transcript. After that, you get a grade. Now, I don't recommend at this point, if you have been working, right, even if you're behind a little, because you can still get caught up. Hopefully, you all know that if you submit work late, you do get late graded, which is at the base, the beginning is 25% off whatever the points possible is. And I think most of you have already gotten that. But if you haven't, it's an okay time to remind that that's true. All right. So in week 4, we are continuing at this point the learning about some basic HTML and CSS. And this week, I'm going to add a new requirement into the way that you're following along with DevEds. And that's the channel name, the YouTuber who we are following along with right now. In the fact that I want you to do explicitly commits at a specific time. And this is fairly common. If you take some of my other classes, you will see that I do this very commonly, where maybe at the end or somewhere else. But in this case, because it's a long video, I say at this point, make sure you stop, right? Do your workflow. So at this point, if I say do your Git workflow, what should be coming to your mind is the commands Git status to show you what is in there, what's tracked, what's not. Git add, if you're adding new files, you're adding them in. If you do git add star, you're adding everything that's been added as far as files go. And then you do a git commit, right? So that commits them into that local repo. So every time you see and you look at my instructions, so let's actually just go look at it while we're talking about it. Let me get rid of me for a minute. So what I'm talking about is right here. In this respect, right? So you're going to end up having 4 commit messages here, okay, for this work. And then I believe I also do show you, and some of you are taking my 93 class are giving me what's called commit history. That's okay. That's fine. But what's important for me is to look and see that you've done these commits. But just to be clear, what's really important is the code that you're doing. And some of you had reached out to me and said, but what happens when in this case, DevEd, deletes something? Well, that's okay, because what I look for is those points in time. And here's the other thing. If it was me doing it for my own education, I would actually just comment out those lines so they're still there. So in case I want to go look at them later. But what's important to me is that those points of time, you do those commit messages. Okay. So I want you to know that this is true. So, and this kind of we're to a normal week this week. I haven't changed the order of the content, but at this point, we've now moved into working local and understanding that process of, the Git workflow now should just become part of your understanding. I said last week, and I think it's worth repeating this week, is from now on, do not change GitHub content on GitHub. Change it only on your local system. Again, there's ways to actually get to reconcile these two. I'm just trying to keep you from that frustration. But sometimes it's through the frustration that we learn and we grow and we gain new skills. Because this class is, yes, about understanding certain things, but I would say most of it is about gaining a new skill of knowing how to put sites together at a very beginning level. Now, having said that, next week, we're going to actually, I was looking ahead to next week, week 5 today, as I was looking at the content, and I'm realizing that because I show you something to use called Bootstrap. And Bootstrap is a framework that you place into your code that allows you to create sites pretty quickly, pretty easily, almost from a template. And I say almost because it's a bit more involved than a regular template. We think of templates as like Microsoft Word. You grab it, you fill in some content, and then you have your document. But in this case, using templates, first from using Bootstrap itself and understanding is more involved because you need to actually be able to create different parts of a page. So my preview is this. I'm going to switch. This is I'm saying this now, so actually I got to go do this for next week's content. Is that before this, I had been using Bootstrap 4. And now Bootstrap 5 is becoming much more common. And so I'm going to switch us to Bootstrap 5, which means I have to re-record each video that you have for the week, for the item, right? So you have this video for me, and then you have one going over the work for Monday and one for Thursday. So I'm going to have to re-record those, which is fine. And I've already found some new content. And I want to tell you one of the reasons I want to move away from Bootstrap 4 is something you may or may not have heard about called Jquery. So Jquery is a framework, a library that has been very in the past common. Matter of fact, it was used for writing JavaScript. Some of you are taking my JavaScript class, and it's become kind of out of fashion, mostly because now in the base language of JavaScript, we can do pretty much everything jQuery could do, but we can do it faster, and we don't have the overhead of something like jQuery. So it makes pages faster. And on the web that we all live on today, having fast pages is probably one of the most important things we can do, is not just create websites that give meaningful first data, information, interaction to whoever comes to our site, but being able to load those sites quickly and mobile ready is, I want to say, equally as important, but it is just part of creating a site that is actually modern and functions in the way that we need it to. Okay. So I'm actually excited about moving to Bootstrap because we're dropping the jQuery. Now, for us in this class, what will happen is you're going to learn some Bootstrap. You're going to learn, I'm going to show you then how to go find a template, which is kind of more of what I was talking about with Word, where you actually grab a design that somebody has done in Bootstrap. And then at that point, you customize that content for your own site. And this actually happens much more than we think, because depending on who you're creating a site for and why you're creating a site, you might want to have something come up pretty quickly, meaning from the time you've thought of it until the actual time you create it. So now, having said that, what I want to show you here in this week that we're coming into in week 4 is I do give you in week 4 oh, I don't. Okay, it's good. It's next week, actually, where I go over the Project Zero. Okay, so for this week, we continue the crash course for Monday and Thursday. Again, do those points. I actually have you do some research about, because he shows some of this, but also just the more you learn about how to use VS Code more effectively or code better. I've actually heard this kind of described both ways. Some people feel like the best thing you can do is just learn to use using the keyboard shortcuts, but really just, so that you can code faster. So there are just many ways, and I talk about this here. And then UTF-8, we continue this. So that's our current topic. Remember, if you want all the points, right, post all of the replies. Remember, I don't grade until if no replies are required, I grade as soon as I see you post your work. So in this case on the hands-on, I do want you to do replies, right? And we talk about Emmet, which is such an important and really helpful thing when coding. And then for the current topics, let's see if I required it for both of them this time. No, I just required 150 words and no replies, it looks like, for this one. So for this one, I kind of reversed it to where I required replies for the the better coding, because I want you to see what other students found as far as how to make, get better at coding. And then we continue on with this. We're going to add some, this is actually showing us, matter of fact, here. Oh no, we're just going to add some basic CSS to your page. I give you a lot of like freedom, but at least want to see you cover, right? Find your own image, include that in that, do your workflow. Remember, at this point, we're working on your GitHub IO site, right? And then write 150 words about this. So this is where we're actually adding just some basic content, taking some of the CSS that you've learned. And then next week is when we jump into Bootstrap. Again, I'm going to change this to Bootstrap 5. And then we're going to wipe out most of this content you've created, because we're going to end up finding a template after we do Bootstrap, finding a template, and then showing you how to bring that template into your crash course or into your GitHub IO course setup. Okay, so a lot coming at us. We are, like I said, in next week, halfway through. If you have any questions about that, I notice not a lot of you are out on Discord, which is, of course, your choice. But I do still encourage you, especially as we get towards, the end of this course, because at that point, it definitely may be more of a need to ask questions as we move toward, because 25% of your class grade comes from that project zero that we start talking about in week 5. Okay. All right. Have a great one. Hope this gives you a good overview of what you need to do. So hit reply here. What shall you do in your reply? Yeah, so maybe any feedback that you have about now working on, yeah, so here's what I want you to tell me is, now when I say the GitHub workflow, do you know what that means? And can you just, without going to look, tell me or tell yourself in your head, what are those commands you use to complete the GitHub workflow? All right, that's what I want to see. Have a great week. Talk to you later.